Thank you, Madeline. And I want to just thank, first of all, Abilene Christian University for hosting me, for inviting me to come here. I am so psyched to be in a room filled with this many people that get to have a week entirely focused on trafficking. Or not on trafficking, but on justice issues in general. My area of focus in justice issues is on trafficking. So I want to thank the IJM chapter for hosting us and for AEI for their invitation to come out here. Before I get started, I just want to let you know, kind of a warning, that you do not want to see me all jacked up on Mountain Dew, and this is the decaf version, so you're welcome, all right? And I've got 18 minutes. I'm not sure how this is going to go, but we'll see. What the heck? All right, so I have entitled today's message, Getting Engaged. And since my notes aren't coming up, I'm going to make this up as I go. So, but I don't want you all to freak out, okay? There, I'm good. So, I am going to encourage all of you to get engaged, all right? But before you text, like I see phones out already, all right? Before you text mom and dad, all right, some creepy old dude has not told you to go about getting married. Now, I mean, like, I'm not doing the, ring by spring thing, okay? You know what I mean? I'm not saying that. I mean, if that's what you want to do, go get it, right? I mean, you're free. You're human beings. You can do what you want. But that's not what I'm talking about, okay? I want to talk about getting engaged with God in his very, very clear instructions, if not mandates to us to engage with him in justice issues. If you just open up scriptures, you cannot help but come across God's passion for justice. I mean, just simple search on your phone app, because that's where my Bible is now. Somebody say, get your Bibles out, and I feel like I'm getting my phone out. I'm like, oh, what am I doing? I'm getting my Bible out, all right? Just a simple search, you will find hundreds of verses just on the word justice alone. Then you add in righteousness or just or injustice. Verses galore. There's a couple that are going to get up on the screen here. First one is from Isaiah. I'm assuming they're going up, but that was really weird. Okay, first one from Isaiah, frankly, should be the mission statement for the global church. All right, that should be what the global church is about. The second one, that's kind of a personal mission statement for me. I dig that one. All right. I really like the thought of bringing terror to evildoers. I know it may sound kind of creepy that I want to bring terror to somebody. Oh, come on, all right? Let's bring it to the right people, okay? The reality is justice is a God-sized problem, and we are called to engage. In my work with the Human Trafficking Institute, but also within the FBI, conducting investigations, actually leading the FBI's Civil Rights Unit during the Ferguson crisis, I saw all kinds of injustice. And there's a verse to me that I want to kind of park in today. Frankly, if you camp out in Isaiah, you'll find out pretty much everything you need to know about God's heart for justice. And I encourage you to do that, not right now, okay? But let's look at this particular verse. Is not this the kind of fasting that I have chosen? To loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke. I love the imagery of breaking the chains of injustice. Injustice holds people down. This fight against injustice is the very nature of God, and he commands us to engage with him. It's not like one of the 10 suggestions. It's like one of the 10 commandments that he gave us, all right? It's not a suggestion. He's saying, go get it. And that's our role. We have to be able, if we want to connect with God, that means dealing with injustice and setting the captives free. Built into his DNA, and therefore built into our DNA, is the desire to free those who are enslaved. What does injustice look like, though? When I worked in the Civil Rights Unit, we saw all kinds we worked on hate crimes based on race, gender, sexual orientation, religion. We saw police brutality issues. We saw corruption matters all over the place. Human trafficking, which if you haven't heard of it before today, is modern day slavery. That's what it is. We shouldn't call it trafficking. Trafficking implies movement. Movement's not required. It is modern day slavery, and we should just call it for what it is. If we're going to engage with God in justice, within his justice fight, we have to be willing to engage in those very things. It's not just the things that I mentioned. How about sexual assaults? How about the fact that racism and bigotry feels like it has a freedom of speech these days, and it's coming out, and it's coming all over the place. I don't know about you guys, but I have been sickened and frankly angered at how many friends and family members and coworkers typed "me too" on their social media. It's a sin. We need to be engaging in this process with everything that's in us. These kinds of injustices are the very thing that Isaiah was speaking about centuries ago when he was talking about breaking the chains of injustice. He was talking about dealing with all of those issues. And yet, those are issues that I referenced that are happening right here in the United States, where we actually have a pretty decent justice system. In most of the world, though, justice is a pipe dream if it's dreamed of at all. There are books that talk about, there's all kinds of studies that talk about the fact that 2/3 of the world lives outside of the rule of law. Imagine injustice happens to you and you call 911 and nobody comes. Aren't you going to be upset? Of course you're going to be upset. Most people on our planet don't even have a 911 to call. The criminal justice systems are not set up to protect and serve people. They're set up to protect and serve the powers that be and to keep them in power so that they can oppress the people that are actually being overwhelmed by the quote-unquote laws. Also, when you don't have the rule of law governing what you do, violence is your companion, all right? And that kind of violence leads to every kind of injustice: murder, rape, of course, trafficking that we've been talking about, sexual assaults, and there's no one to call. That's what we are called to engage with. We are called to go get dirty. Most of the poor have zero access to that. My work with the Human Trafficking Institute has me travel often to Belize and Uganda and to other places, helping their governments, come alongside their governments and helping them to engage their anti-trafficking efforts. That's the area of justice that my organization is focused on, is trafficking in persons, or human trafficking. I work with government officials in the developing world that really want to do something about this. They're passionate, they care. They hate that their citizens are being subjected to this kind of trauma and this kind of abuse, and they want to do something about it. They actually have really good trafficking statutes that bring accountability to the traffickers and provide for services for the victims of the abuse. And yet hardly anybody ever calls the authorities. The governments aren't trusted. Those laws are not being enforced at all. Similarly, I've met with survivors of trafficking in Uganda and Belize, and I've met with the workers who work with those survivors on a regular basis, and I ask them, the law actually provides all these benefits to you. Why don't you call the government? Why don't you get the help that you are entitled to? And the answer is, we don't trust them. They're complicit in what we want to do. So here's my question to you. So what if you have a good trafficking statute? So what if murder is illegal and rape is illegal and being a child soldier is illegal and human sacrifice is illegal if no one's going to enforce those statutes? Who cares that the majority of human beings are not bigoted racists who want to see harm done to something if they're going to remain silent? I heard it said, and I agree 100%, the silent majority is irrelevant. I don't care how moral you are if you are not going to engage it. If you remain silent, you run the risk of being complicit. This has to change. We have to get engaged. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, he said it this way. He said, if you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. Anybody here want to volunteer that they have chosen the side of the oppressor? I don't think so. But when we stay silent and when we do nothing, we assume it's somebody else's job to take care of, we are choosing the side of the oppressor because no one's doing anything and the oppressors are getting away with it. That's what we're up against. I gotta tell you though, getting engaged can be messy. All right, I remember the phrase getting engaged when I first started thinking about this. I actually thought about my wife. Getting engaged to my wife, and I loved it, all right? We were so excited, right? We're really young, okay? And because that was a long time ago, because I'm not really young now, all right? And so we were dreaming, right, of our future together, right? Of walking hand in hand into old age and into our dotard years where our kids will have to take care of us, assuming we took care of them well enough. So, because really, remember, when you have kids, your children are going to pick where you die, okay? So just remember that, all right, as you have kids. That was a free one. You're welcome, okay? The thing is, no one, when they get engaged, actually thinks of the really hard work and the drudgery that comes in that goes along with it, right? But I want the happily ever after in my life. That's what I want for my life. That's what I want for my marriage. And that means I have to be committed to the hard work of engaging with things when things are dull and when things are not romantic, when they're not a Nicholas Sparks movie, okay? When things are actually going poorly, I have to be committed to the process of engaging with my wife because I do want to go hand in hand with her into the eternity. You know what I mean? The same is true with the God stuff. If we are going to engage with him, we have to be willing to do the hard work and to get messy. There's this quote I have that I've kept on my walls from Teddy Roosevelt for years, and I want to share it with you guys as well, okay? I love the fact that he talks about it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, and who, at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who knew neither victory nor defeat. I've had that quote in my office for years. It still pumps me up every time I read it. Man, I so want to do noble deeds, right? I want to dare greatly and get dusty and bloody and dirty and mired in the arena. I want my life to matter. I remember when I first found out about trafficking, very late in my career, by the way. All right, I first found out about trafficking and I'm like, God, thank you. I had been wondering what you wanted me to do for the rest of my life, okay? And now you've shown me. I know what my actual call is. And he said, here, Dave, go do this. And I'm like, giddy up, I'm in it, all right? I am all in. And so I'm going, and my sister-in-law is really kind of worried for me, you know? She's like, hey, is it gonna be dangerous? And I said, I hope so. And she looked at me, kind of did that, puppy dog thing, huh? All right? And I think what I meant was I wanted what I was doing to count, to actually have an impact. It's not having an impact if it's easy for the people you're going against. I want my life to be part of those things where we have to get sweaty and dusty and bloody. I wanted my life to matter. And it's hard. It comes with a lot of hard work. It also comes with insecurities. I remember when I actually had that conversation with her, I was like, yeah, come on, I want to do this. I want to deploy overseas, which I have done. I want to go into dangerous areas, and I want to lay hands on people in a non-Pentecostal way, if you know what I mean, okay? All right, I mean, I really just want to, because that's the skill set I have, all right? So I want to be able to engage the world with that passion for God. But I also am going, man, what skills do I have to offer? Do the skills that I have, are they enough? I had insecurities about the very real dangers. I'm married, I've got kids. What happens to me if I die? I'm not worried about death itself for me, all right? I'm worried about the pain that precedes it, okay? But I know where I'm going. I'm cool with that. So for me, my issue is, how do I do that? You know, how do I engage my passion, and how do I be safe? And you know what I can't do? I can't do both. I have to be willing to be at risk, to get my butt kicked occasionally, all right? And then to get up and to stand up. And the beauty of that is, that's what the church is all about. Faith is not a belief in something. Faith is a verb. Faith is doing something about it so that we can move forward. And that's what I want to encourage all of you to do. Every single one of you has a skill set that is needed in the justice world. Every single one of you have God-given abilities that is needed in the fight for injustice. Against injustice, not for injustice. You know what I meant, okay? All right? The reality is, this world, this type of fight, doesn't just need investigators and lawyers and social workers. It needs them. It also needs accountants. It needs creative artists. It needs writers. It needs mathematicians. It needs engineers who can build wells, right? It needs people who can actually have this gift to be able to give deeply from their resources. It needs all of us. Paul talks so regularly, didn't he, about the fact that our individual gifts, when we combine them together as the church, we can do anything. And that's what God is calling for us. He's calling for us to engage in unity. And I'm at the 2-minute mark, and I'm going to finish with this. You do not have the strength, the endurance, the power, the wisdom, the smarts, or the energy to do this on your own. You don't. Neither do I. And as like a type A performance guy, that kind of ticked me off a little bit. I'm like, hey, dude, what's up with that? God being dude, okay, capital D, all right? You know what I mean? So I'm like, what is up with that? And he's going, dude, seriously, hear me out, brother. You don't have the strength, but I'm with you. Don't you remember what Jesus told the disciples at the end? He didn't leave them on their own. They were curled up in the fetal position, sucking their thumb, not knowing what was coming next, right? I mean, that's where they were. And he said, no, I will be with you until the very end of the age. He's with us. So let's take a simple step. Get engaged. Be passionate. Okay? Actually follow your dreams and follow your passions so that you can use the gifts that God has given to you for His glory, not your glory, His glory. He is longing for us to intervene. There are people on this planet who need our input and our energy. Get engaged. And the cool thing is, your weakness, our weakness, by Jesus' grace, will be made perfect in Christ for His glory. So I'm going to ask Rachel to come up. She's got one more thing. I just want you this week, as you're thinking about justice issues, think what your gifting is and think how you can go out there and you can engage with God. You're not the one who has the strength. He is, and He gets to use us, and we get to participate with Him. Doesn't get any better than that. Thanks.